Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of Science from the Fringe's most popular feature, which is called Can I Respond to That, Please? This is Bryce Nichols. I'm a professor of genetics and at Rutgers University and co-founder of Biosafety Now, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, national treasure and professor at Stanford University. Jay, you looked a little bit flustered when I called you a national treasure. Is it because I normally call you a cultural icon and you're used to
No,
that?
I mean, the thing is, I think you've used that on people like in the
Oh,
past. So,
you caught that.
I'm wondering whether it means the same thing when it applies to, people like me.
You caught that. I didn't think you would notice that I had equated you with one of our true national treasures, whose name I will not mention. But thank you for joining me this evening. And because we have a very important topic to discuss, even though I still will try to keep a little bit of levity today, because I have gotten a lot of negative feedback on the times where I try to be serious. People said they don't like that. So more jokes today, less seriousness. However, it is a very serious topic because we're going to be talking about something that's come up in this new movie that both Jay and I are featured in, which is called Thank You, Dr. Fauci. It's a film that debuted actually, or was available to stream online today. We're recording this on October 28th. And one of the subjects that's covered in the film is this idea of consent and whether members of the public have consented to having their lives put at risk by dangerous experiments in the lab. So what I'd like to do, well, I guess, Jay, do you want to have anything you want to say about this?
Yeah. So just very, very quickly on this, Bryce, of course, the idea of informed consent is almost the very center of medical ethics, right? So when a patient is provided an option for some medical treatment, a surgery or medication or whatever, they're supposed to be told, what are the risks associated with this? What are the expected benefits? And they're supposed to be able to make a decision, do I want this for me, right? And if you don't do that, then you're behaving unethically as a doctor. That's just a basic principle of informed consent. The idea that communities of people should also be able to consent to the risks that they're exposed to seems to me like there's no reason not to extend it to that as well, right? So, for instance, am I going to have a nuclear plant placed near me? Am I going to have you can talk about NIMBY, not in my backyard kinds of things, but at the very least, you ought to be able to say, have some say, a democratic say at the very least, in whether nuclear waste is put in my backyard, right? I mean, there's big fights over this. But here we're talking, I think, Bryce, we're going to be talking about something very close to home about very dangerous research that might be happening in the backyards of people all across the country and certainly all across the world without people knowing about it.
Who's now current member of our group of Biosafety Now is a woman named Klare Allen. And so I want to just read, this is her bio from the Biosafety Now website. So she's a community organizer and activist who in 2000 founded the Roxbury Safety Net as a movement of people of color who've been excluded from decision-making processes that impact their safety, quality of life, and environment. And for over 20 years, the Safety Net has promoted environmental justice and community control over development of the Roxbury neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts. In 2002, the Safety Net discovered Boston University's plans to build a BSL-4, Biosafety Level 4 lab, later named the National Emerging Infectious Diseases Laboratories, or NEIDL.
Can I stop you for just one quick second? Why is there this desire to place these kinds of labs in the middle of big cities? Why not put them in, far away from human populations?
Well, there is this famous clip. Well, I don't know if it's famous, but there's a clip from one of the worst examples of scientific communication ever, This Week in Virology, where one of the virologists involved in the proximal origins fraud, this guy named Bob Gary, talks about how you don't want to have these labs in remote areas because you're never going to get a good virologist to want to live in a remote area.
It's easy to think, oh, it came from a lab, and there's a lab there, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that selling that point is pretty easy. It's a coincidence. They say, oh, how could that possibly be? That's just can't be a coincidence. Well, I would answer that by saying it isn't a coincidence. That lab was built there because of SARS-1. and it was put in central China because, that's a beautiful city. People want to live there. And, there's been a lot of talk about, oh, we shouldn't have these labs, biosafety level 3, 4 labs in big cities. We should put them out, in the countryside somewhere, I mean, how many academics, how many, really good virologists would you want that you would want to live, 100 miles away from civilization?
Or in Hamilton, Montana.
Montana's a beautiful place. Let's give them that. There's some reasons why you might want to live up there, but I mean, there's a reason why we have BSL, labs in places like Boston and other places like that. So.
Well, Robert, there are some people who argue that we shouldn't even been studying these SARS-like coronaviruses from bats in the lab, which to me is preposterous, right?
I mean, ignorance is hardly ever the best choice that you want to make here. I think it's actually quite a dangerous choice. And that's one of the problems with all this emphasis now on lab leaks and, that kind of thing. It takes away energy from what we actually need to be doing, which is cooperating with China and other countries to learn what the diversity of sarbecoviruses and other, potential pathogens are. Yeah. If we just shut that down, if we say virologists are too dangerous to be, allowed to do their work, then we're going to put ourselves in a much less, a much more precarious position next time one of these things does emerge.
The virologists like to live comfortably within big cities. So we need to it's really about the comfort and convenience of the good virologists who need to be in big cities so that they can, access the amenities available in those cities. So Jay, I think you're just looking at this wrong. You're prioritizing safety and the public.
The people of the community. Yeah.
Right. It's not this, Jay, come on. This is not about the public at all. This is about virologists getting a chance to go out to a nice dinner in a big city, a metropolitan area. Maybe they want to catch an opera, enjoying the sights, the sounds of the big city. Because as virologists,
didn't scientists used we all admire Jane Goodall because she went out into the wild and lived with the baboons.
Jay, not a scientist. Also not a virologist. So Jane had nothing to do with science. She observed. She was an observer.
Are we back to the moving fluids around thing? It's always
Jane Goodall sat around watching animals do stuff, not science. That's basically, I don't know what that is.
Literally what economists do for a living is we
brain spotting, I think. Just with apes.
Watching, the human animal move around and do stuff.
Right. Again, another not scientific thing. Economist, whatever that. Bob Gary and these other amazing people, these are virologists, okay? And what virologists do, they move fluids that contain the world's most dangerous agents. That's during the day. At night, they like to go out and hang out at clubs.
But but the big city, but then you got to put it in the Roxbury. It's not like you can.
Well, that's just so I guess I would need to figure out more about. I'm going to assume that the land, the cost of the land was perhaps cheaper, or and actually there's another thing here, of course, which is that it was easier to deal with the residents of Roxbury and convince them, quote unquote, that they should just allow this to happen in their community. I think, I'm going to play a clip about the first time the person who was trying to assuage the concerns of the community members spoke to Claire Allen and other members of Roxbury. And you'll sort of see the way they pitched this to them, which is why I really thought when this was platformed for other scientists that they would suggest that maybe this is problematic. Sadly, they did not, Jay. And I don't know if you can hear it. Like I'm just kind of angry about like it really drives me nuts. It's lived rent free in my head ever since. But
I know I could tell, Bryce, because this is one of the. I mean, after the last 2 episodes of Can I Respond to This, Please? You were like, Jay, we have to do one about this. I'm like, Bryce, is it living rent free in your head? And you're like, yes, it's living. It's Jay. It's living rent free in my head. So here we are doing a Can I Respond to This, Please? To make it so that it lives in rent free in other people's heads too.
Well, who knows? I think some people's heads are refractory to this because they actually don't care. But who knows? Maybe somebody will have a little dose of humanity out there in the scientific community, or I don't know. Like, okay, I need to do with this with grace. You're right. Sorry, Jay. I'm just hearing your voice in my head. So let's see. So here it is. So basically in 2002, the Safety Net formed this campaign called the Stop the BU Bioterror Lab. And since 2002, Klare has operated this coalition of community residents, scientists, lawyers, students, and members of peace and justice groups, as well as members of the faith community that tried to stop, the NEIDL from being built. Frankly, they tried to stop it from being built, but once it was built, they've tried to fight as best they could for transparency and to try to make it as safe as possible, because they did not win to try to stop it. But then once it was built, the next battle has been, and they've been trying to get this again and again, to get transparency, to get, plans for, if something goes wrong, what are the plans, what contingency plans, all of this stuff. What it's resulted in is Klare's efforts over these 2 decades has been to actually have the most strict local regulations on biosafety, biosecurity, and biorisk management in any city in the U.S. However, it's still not enough, Jay. Like, it still doesn't, none of this means anything if there are no penalties, if there's a violation of these, regulations.
It's striking. First, Klare sounds like an amazing person, actually. Like to have this kind of, wherewithal to like fight a 2-decade long campaign and actually, get get some concessions in place. But I do want to say, it's not that I'm against doing this kind of science. I just don't understand why it has to happen in places where, lots and lots of people are, especially poor and vulnerable people who don't have the capacity to generally, except for amazing people like Klare, to fight back.
One of the things that is a goal of biosafety now is to finally get some level of auditing of dangerous, high-risk research, which is the general consensus of not even consensus, but scientists are trained to always say that you need more research, more money, more research. There's never any reflection on how much research we actually need. So there's never been an audit, not by the scientists, but by independent observers to say, well, how much of this research do we need and where should it be conducted? To your point, Jay, that there's no, because this is just all gimme, and the local, whoever's benefiting, I guess, Klare would be able to speak more to this. There's a lot of money in this. If BU builds this facility, which they were finally able to do, just operating these high containment biolabs requires millions of dollars each year just to keep the lights going, to keep it from it's not like, remember in Ghostbusters, how they put the ghosts in that big thing. And then like when the power went out, all the ghosts get out. So you have to have the power on. Here, it's even worse than just those ghosts. It's actually like, super pathogenic stuff that can fly through the air and like kill everyone, which is great, which is just what we need to be working on. But the point is that, it's a boondoggle, because as soon as you build it, the government has to keep giving you millions of dollars each year just to keep these massive machines going to, like to sanitize the air or whatever. So there's a huge investment. It's not just the building of it, but there's the maintenance, which is a massive cost, and all that all that money just sort of goes into BU, and they get to, it's a slush fund essentially. You want to hear what this is Claire describing when she first heard of the BU plans to build this high containment biolab, and what happened.
I was at work doing environmental justice stuff there, and this man called the office, and he asked for the Roxbury Safety Net. And I said, I'm the organizer for the Roxbury Safety Net. How can we help you? And so he said, well, somebody from the safety net needs to come down to the BU meeting. And I said, BU meeting about, he was like, I just think residents should know about this. To this day, I don't know who this man is. All I know is he was a white guy. But he asked us, and I said, well, when is the meeting? He's like, right now. So I'm like, are you kidding? It was like March, it's snowing. But anyway, I got 3 or 4 residents to come with me. So we went, and there was this huge auditorium. And so there was like maybe 100, 150 scientists, nurses in the room. And Mark Klempner was the provost for BU at that time. And so we sat in the back and we were listening to them. And we really couldn't understand what they were saying, but we, tried to make out. And then they kept talking and talking. And so they kept saying in Roxbury, and that's my community. And so then they would say hemorrhagic fever, Roxbury, smallpox, Roxbury, like all these different diseases. So we kind of looked at each other like, are they planning to put that shit in our community? And so then we were like, I don't know. So we stood up and we said, do the residents know that you're bringing this into the community? Oh, no. I said, well, you need to tell the residents. He said, well, I tell you what, if you can get somebody confident in your community to meet with us, then we'll meet with you. And this is in front of 100 or more scientists and nurses. I don't know if you've ever felt like a piece of shit before in front of all these people. So we stayed. We didn't walk out, but we stayed, and one public health person from BU, Pat Hines, Patricia Hines, and she said, why are you talking to the residents that way? And so he kind of shooed us away, and then that was the end of it. So when everybody left, then we left. And we couldn't wait to get out of there. We just burst out crying. Like, how in the hell is this man going to call us? Did he think we didn't know what incompetent was or something? Like, how do you just come in somebody's community and say we're going to put all this deadly stuff in your neighborhood and then call us incompetent in front of all the... So it wasn't happening. He got the wrong black girl that day. I'm not saying anything bad about Mark Klempner nor the work that he does. But if you're going to work with people, I don't give a damn what color they are. You do not speak to them in that manner. You just don't approach 4 women like that. You don't call people out like that. That's not nice. Our mothers raised us not to be ignorant and rude to others. So I'm glad Mark is doing good. And, that's it. But that's what he did to us.
So that, yeah, I mean, I've heard her tell that multiple times. It's in, I don't, Jay, I guess you haven't heard that before.
No,
it's like,
this is the first time I've heard this. Wow. It's absolutely shocking, Bryce. I can't believe that she was treated this way. Like it really, it enrages me. It absolutely enrages me. She's absolutely right. You don't call out people like that. That's not nice. What is he doing? Patronizing her. She and I guess the 3 others were the only people from the community that were there. And they're just asking for more information about what this is. And I hope she's wrong about smallpox, because that's a disease that's been eradicated.
Well, that's 2002. I guess, right. You're right. Good point about that. I'll have to check to see what you know what? Yes, I don't think they had smallpox there, but frankly, who knows?
Who knows? I mean, how do I know that for a fact that they don't?
No.
And the point, that's the point. Like, where is they're just, what they're asking for is transparency, right? They want to know what is going to be studied there. What risk will that pose to the people of the community? And Bryce, there's nothing wrong with wanting to know that. And frankly, there's also nothing wrong with opposing having that happen, that you should have a say in whether that those kinds of risks get taken on their, in their community in ways that might affect them and their children.
Right. This is at the time where she was just learning that they were about to build this. And then from that moment on, they tried to fight it to prevent it from happening. And there's a lot of stuff written about from that period of time. There's actually, I'd have to pull the clip, or I can pull the text that describes this, how actually there's there's a lot of like audio of even, I don't know if you remember, there was this BBC documentary, I think, about COVID origins, and there's somebody, I forget who it is. It might be Gerald Cush, actually. Somebody that is operating the needle, and he talks. He actually says, "This is now from 2023." He described this history of trying to like convince the residents that everything was A-OK to build this. You should hear the way he described this. He has no respect at all for the opinions of the unwashed peasants around him.
We had a hard time getting the final permissions to open up because we're in a residential area and people in the community not understanding what it was and what the safety procedures were or why it was needed were objecting to it. There were lawsuits.
It was sort of fear-driven.
It was fear-driven, but every complaint was rejected. We're in an era where science is being attacked and threats are being made, same against scientists. That'll drive us back into the Middle Ages. I think we need to continue to defend science, to defend learning, the incremental increase in knowledge, and the use of that in a positive and pragmatic manner. And that's what I think science and scientists are all about, with always a few exceptions.
I think it just speaks to this, the word hubris is used a lot. I honestly don't know, Jay. To me, this is like psychopath, sociopath. What is it?
I mean, we've been joking about the scientists move fluids around, but there is this sense that scientists put themselves above other human beings, right? So like, and if you watch like, like Gilligan's Island or something, the professor is on a stage above everybody because he's so smart. Of course, nothing he ever tries to do gets them off the island, right? But he's the bright one, right? And somehow, like the fact that scientists are so smart puts them in a moral plane above normal human beings.
The next clip I want to play for you, Jay, is a clip of a member of the Roxbury Safety Net named Lorraine speaking at a meeting in California. So she was speaking remotely. She dialed in to speak at a meeting in, I think it was, San Carlos.
San Carlos is up the street from me. It's not that far from me.
I know. If only we weren't working together then. Like, this is interesting, right? So I was, as I told you, Jay, so this is from 2023 when it's late where I am. When San Carlos, California, was deciding whether or not to allow use of permits, to allow conditional use permits for BSL-3 labs in their community. And I was working with local residents, to help prevent that from being approved. And so were Claire Allen and other members of the Roxbury Safety Net, who are also lending their voices. And so one of the people who spoke at this meeting from Roxbury Safety Net is this woman named Lorraine. And I want to play this clip of what she said at this city council meeting in San Carlos, California in early 2023.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Fowlkes. Thank you for having me. I'm from Boston. I'm with the Roxbury Safety Net as well. We've been waging a 23-year fight trying to make Boston University transparent. There too, they said they would never do certain things, and they did them. I do agree with the banning of the 3s and 4s. 1s and 2s are helpful. They help mankind. The 3s and 4s are nothing but biodefense weapons labs with dual use, gain of function, and anything else that can go on in there will go on. People do what they can get away with. This is not the first time that there is a lack of transparency and a rush to put these labs in place. This is money, this is an industry, and they are not transparent, never have been, never will be, and your legacies are at stake. Thank you very much for listening.
That is something that I posted, that short clip, 50-second clip. I posted that on Biosafety Now Twitter feed on March 31st, 2023. About a month and a half after Biosafety Now launched. You have to remember something about this time period, Jay, which was that Twitter during that period of time, there were a lot more people who would have no qualms attacking, Biosafety Now, what we were doing. I know now there's a lot of the people who would otherwise comment or, oppose us. Many of them, of course, have moved to Blue Sky. Others just don't engage whatsoever. But during this period of time, they did engage. And I want to show some of the reactions to that clip.
Can I just react real fast to that? First of all, it's up the street from me, Bryce. I mean, it's like, just 10, 15 miles up the street from me. It's not that far from me. I didn't know there was a BSL-3 lab.
Well, there aren't. That's the point. We stopped it, Jay. You're welcome. You're welcome. You know what? I do it for you. I didn't know. I do it for the little guy.
Let's address this. Like I didn't know. I did not even know about this fight going on in my backyard. Like,
that's right.
There was no big fight. The big thing made about it. Yeah, I think I would want to know. And I think everyone should get to know this, right?
This is where the community activists are so important, because unless these meetings aren't exactly so if your goal is to sort of push through permitting and stuff, unless there's a local community activist or something that is tracking what's going on, they'll just push it through with no opposition. The meetings get scheduled hastily so you don't give a lot of time for residents to prepare, the corporate interests or whatever, all those people they know when these meetings are, and they show up and they put their little stupid speeches on. I had posted some of these speeches from some of the guys, like these lobbyists. Unfortunately, I should play it for you. But it's actually, you know what? I could find. Well, the point is that these are these very scuzzbags, very sleazy presentation. They got up and they essentially just told the residents of San Carlos, if you don't allow BSL-3 labs to be built here, your economy is going to be destroyed.
Gary Boitano, thank you so much for having me. Good evening, Ryan. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having me. I want to start by congratulating the city and this committee for the growth that the city of San Carlos has seen. Last time I appeared in front of you, I spoke about the chilling market effects that a ban on BSL-3 labs would have in the San Carlos market. I genuinely do think that it will put a big halt on people wanting to come here. Before you tonight is legislation that would make BSL-3 a conditional use permit or ban it outright. It will be the only town in the Bay Area that has the ban. I think banning BSL-3 labs is going to be very bad for this city. And with that will come a potential freeze on this wonderful growth that I just congratulated this committee and the city on. To be clear, by making this a conditional use permit, San Carlos would have the most restrictive zoning laws across any city in the Bay Area when it comes to BSL-3 labs. I really want to be honest and sane. Let me repeat that. The least restrictive option in front of you tonight would be the most restrictive option across the Bay Area. I think a big freeze could happen, and I want to make sure the city is aware of that and prepared for that. Between all of the regulation that this industry already faces, the high standards of safety that exist across local, state, and national agencies, and the chilling market impact of any further regulation, I would urge you to simply make BSL-3 labs a conditional use in the city. Thank you.
Like, they're like threatening the residents. Like, you don't know what repercussions this will have. It'll have a chilling effect on jobs here. And a lot of the residents that spoke after were like, I'm really offended that you would just come in here and like threaten us like that.
Don't take the threats from the biotech companies. Those were outright threats.
The dollars are trumping safety in this issue.
And I think that is shocking that threats were made in a meeting.
You know, because of a few tax dollars, we're taking the risk of having a safety issue with these biosafety 3 labs.
That the dollars are more important than the residents and the safety.
Please note the euphemism here under the name biosafety.
Like, what the is wrong with, you know? So, I mean, good for them. There's
There's a clip from, I forget which season of The Simpsons, of a man who comes to Springfield and tries to convince them to build a monorail.
The same thing, right? It's like,
It's literally, it's like, you know, except it's, at least his vision is positive. He's not trying to bring, you know, deadly pathogens into the middle of a major metropolitan area. Okay. We should address one thing before you go on to these horrible tweets I'm sure you're about to show me. The fact is there's a movement against local control, local objections to pro-social kinds of developments, right? So there's this NIMBY movement. So with NIMBY is like, no, not in my backyard. You're not allowed to build that. Don't build that because it's going to harm me. A lot of people are like, well, this is a bad thing. Like, NIMBY is a bad thing. You should be willing to have, you know, more houses built, that kind of thing, right?
That's a little different than I don't want Ebola being cultured.
That's the point I want to make here, Bryce. Those are distinct. We're not just doing NIMBY things. Like, there's an additional element of like basic consent to facing a real physical, biological danger that doesn't have to be placed in major metropolitan areas, specifically, generally in like low-income neighborhoods.
Especially if they're not going to do like a hybrid BSL-4 and Trader Joe's together, because that'd be amazing. Or Whole Foods, because I could walk. You can walk there. Yeah,
you double up the use of those freezers in Trader Joe's. I mean, why not?
True. Everyone loves Trader Joe's. They have so many unique items, Jay.
Ebola.
Well, yes, the chocolate-covered Ebola.
Just for the record, Trader Joe's does not have Ebola. I love Trader Joe's. I love you guys. Just FYI.
Yes. Jay Bhattacharya has been sued for defamation by Trader Joe's.
No, dude. No, I love those guys. Don't.
You love those? Interesting.
I do. I really like Trader Joe's. It's one of my favorite grocery stores.
Of course it is. You're, Stanford professor. Of course, you have to. Even if you didn't like Trader Joe's, it's part of the brand. It's part of the brand. Stanford professor. Like, oh, I love Trader Joe's.
What, dude? They have
Yes.
The freezer section is pretty good, as long as they keep Ebola out.
I know. It's all good. Everyone's happy there. It's like, but at the end of the day, you cannot do all of your grocery shopping at Trader Joe's. It's not a place you go to like stock up on paper towels and like cleaner for your house. Like, you can't get like window cleaner there, or I don't know.
I just live with windows that are not
onion dip mix. There's just not a lot of. There's a lot of frozen things. There's a lot of tubs of cookies that are delicious. There's a lot of just odd things like glazed figs or something. Like, just there's a lot of things that I don't need to eat, but I will. Like ginger sprinkled pineapple slices that are desiccated, that kind of crap.
Yeah, dude.
With little chili powder on it. They
got the frozen curries too.
Yeah, I know, and I do love those. Okay, but here we go back to. But let's see what. Speaking of violent negative reactions to things here. So you would think, Jay, this woman. And honestly, what she said is kind of reasonable, which is that BSL 3s and 4s are research that's biodefense. Many of these are sort of indistinguishable. The pathogens that are being worked on, they could be used as bioweapons agents, or they're bioweapon agents. They could be used as agents of harm, biological agents of harm. That's, in fact, why they're working on them in BSL 3, BSL 4 labs. I mean, it's just sort of part of the thing. I understand these are these are pathogens that can exist in nature, at least the ones that are the natural ones before they soup them up. But still, they are things that are super dangerous. So by working with them in a community, it presents a potential, potential threat to the residents. Furthermore, the residents are not actually allowed to know what research is being done in those labs because it's by law, they're not allowed to, and what pathogens they have and how many, how much of the pathogen is there. So there's a lot of things being withheld from them. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at the responses to concerns from a community resident that were voiced when I posted that on Twitter. So I'm just going to go through some of these, Jay. I'm not going to dwell on each one, just to give you an idea of the scope of the negative reaction here. So you can see this one, crank organization that relies on lies and distortions to promote its goals is not an honorable one. So there's objections to like what she said not being factually correct. Patrick Jackson says, let's see, I'm mystified someone who claims to care about ethics would Jay, please. I mean, what, honestly, like you see why this lives rent free in my head? Yes. Patrick Jackson is chastising us because I posted that clip and accusing me of not having any ethics.
Bryce, in the interest of show business, I think you should be reading these aloud.
I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. Okay, let's just do this because this is so terrible. All right. So first of all, let's say, okay, here we go. Yeah, we might as well because these people are they deserve to be completely. Okay, here we go. Nicholas Bauer, who I really miss this guy on Twitter. He was one of the most.
This is a great handle. But let's just be clear. BioTurbo Nick is a pretty good handle.
You must have never interacted with him on Twitter.
I did not. I've never interacted with him.
He is not this person was not kind. Okay, as you can see here. So Nicholas Bauer, PhD, writes, so this crank organization filled with clowns doesn't just want regulation. They want to outright ban all BSL 3-4 level research. These people haven't mastered object permanence. The viruses aren't going to go away just because we stop studying them. He further
No, Bryce, we have to let us respond a little bit.
Well, there's like 30 of these, Jay. I'm just saying.
Oh my God. Well, this one's particularly good. So first, kudos. The word object permanence, it brings to mind of a small child, where you show them the thing, and then you play, you show your face to them, and then you cover your face, and then the child doesn't know you're there. That's how peekaboo works. Object permanence, right?
Yes.
So that's kudos for him knowing something about child development. I mean, let's just, if we're gonna criticize, we should
also never have interacted with this person because this was probably before ChatGPT, so he probably wrote this himself. He's probably pretty proud. It's like, I got this one. I hope I can use it.
My reaction very fast is the argument isn't to do away with the research altogether. The argument is
he misrepresents the point. Yes, he totally misrepresents the point. Yes, so you're dealing now with people that took what was said. They don't was said, Jay. They just want to attack the fact that somebody had the gall to oppose a BSL 3-4.
If this dude wants to go do BSL 3-4 research in a place where it's very far away from other human populations, if it's as long as it's reasonable research.
This person does not have the temperament to do. I do not want this person to be anywhere near anything that's dangerous. This person really, again, not a kind person. Here's another thing that this guy, Nicholas Bauer, PhD, says about biosafety now. An organization that relies on lies and distortion to promote its goals is not an honorable one. Agreed. Now, I agree with that statement.
I have nothing against
Actually
this
true.
tweet. That's a correct tweet. Actually,
yes.
I don't know if you're going to edit this out, but you might. You might want to, just to avoid entanglements, blank out the names of these people.
Why? These are public tweets. I can read public tweets.
Yeah, you can. That's true.
Yeah, this is something they said.
Yeah, that's true.
The whole point of this is I'm responding. I mean, these people put this up. And I was not able to properly respond. So here we are responding to these.
Okay. That's fair. Fair enough.
Yep. If they have an issue with what they wrote, then they shouldn't have written it. You know,
I mean, I have no issue with the previous tweet. He's correct.
Yeah, it's actually correct. You just it didn't apply to the state, like Lorraine's words.
That's
Patrick
correct.
Jackson, who I believe might know, he's not wearing a lab coat, but it looks almost like he is. He writes, I think, well, it's rare for Patrick to do that, but here we go. I think it's intellectually dishonest to amplify false information. I agree. It is. About BSL-3 labs to stoke public fear and achieve a desired policy goal. I'm not the bad actor here. That's sorry. These are amazing. I'm not the bad actor here. That's biosafety now. I'm mystified that someone who claims to care about ethics would support this behavior. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's for me to read this with I just really find this just very sad. What am I feeling now, Jay? Can you describe what I'm feeling? Because I just
you're frustrated because there's so much wrong with this tweet that you don't know where to start.
Yes,
and you're quite upset because the aim of the tweet is to hide the fact that you have someone from the Roxbury Safety Net arguing against the placement of a lab in basically just up the street from me. Because it's where I don't know about it, where I don't know what they're going to do, potentially putting me and my family at risk. Rather than placing the lab somewhere else where it, like in the middle of nowhere, where it wouldn't place my family or the people who in Roxbury at risk.
Yeah, and Patrick was quite well, this one, I guess I'm not going to read that one, but it's this is sort of indignation. Well, here's another one of my favorites from back in the day. This person, Joseph Osmundson, who this is actually kind of sad. I know this person from back when he was a grad student, and I'm not sure why, but he became, at least until recently, a very I don't know, said a lot of really just ridiculously rude things. And here's what he said about that video. He said, "Is it the official position of Biosafety Now that all BSL-3 and BSL-4 labs should be banned? Not just gain of function research, but all research at BSL-3? That is insane." Again, what you have here is somebody misrepresenting the intent of the Twitter post that was made. The post was to platform words that were said.
Bryce, this is a community organizer, someone who's right to represent the voice of the community. It's not the position of Biosafety Now that all BSL-3 and 4 research should be gotten rid of. It's not even her position, Lorraine's position, from what I could tell from that clip. It's the people should have the right to know,
Jay,
that
even
it's happening.
If it were, it's her. That's the right
position
of the community to have that thought. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's the right of Biosafety Now, which was the goal was to elevate public voices into these discussions, to platform it. And I stand by the decision to platform it because that's kind of what one of the major points of Biosafety Now was. Oh my gosh, is.
Look, just to not to keep beating this point, but the argument isn't to get rid of all research at BSL-3 and BSL-4 labs. The argument is to let community members know it's happening and have a voice in whether it does happen.
It's
and then actually to encourage the placement of these labs that are known to leak sometimes very dangerous pathogens in places that are remote from large communities of people. Why place them in city centers? It makes absolutely no sense.
But we do also want to if what we need to ask if the research is necessary and needed.
Yeah, that is true, but I'm not just disputing that. I'm saying, but that's an additional point you can make on top of what actually is currently being discussed in these kind of like settings, which is, should it be placed here? Should the community get to know that it is being placed here and the risks associated with that?
Yeah.
And should they have a voice in saying whether it's going to be placed here?
Which, again, going back to the central point of, do scientists care about the public at all? And do scientists care about like minority members of the public, people who have been, this is just, literally like, okay. Joe goes on to say, imagine such a wacko take from what is clearly a very serious organization. Now that's, of course, satirical. He then says, do they know they don't have to tweet every person they run across? If they don't agree that all BSL-3 labs are bioweapons labs, they can just not retweet it. Like someone had to sit there and go, I will retweet this. Yeah, Joe, again, not one of my favorite people on Twitter. Now, this one's interesting, Jay. So the reason I'm going to show this one, so this is actually written by someone named Andrew Kern, who used to be a colleague of mine at Rutgers. I think he's now at Oregon. This was when, I would actually we would get some engagement from scientists, like more scientists than now. In fact, I don't think many scientists actually engage on Twitter with the Biosafety Now account anymore. But here's one of my former colleagues saying, why would you amplify them? I would just say, because they're members of the community that have an opinion. Is this, why is this, maybe it wasn't clear. I don't know.
Well, can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
Because the idea that you're amplifying them and that it's somehow shameful for a scientist to amplify a community voice. I mean, I've got some of that nonsense too from people, and I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand why it's wrong to take the concerns, even if I disagree about some fact or another said by the community member. But to amplify the broader concern seems to me like it's a pro-social thing to do. It's not, and it's not even anti-science, right? It's saying like, look, we scientists are not above you. We're also like you. We are also community members. We care about the same things you care about. We have these other things that we're trying to do, and ideally, science is a community activity, Bryce. Ideally, they participate in the decisions about like what, and in fact, it has to be. Most biomedical sciences are funded by taxpayers, by people in the community. We work for them, Bryce.
Yeah, I'm really kind of speechless. And let me show you. So first, you want to react to Florian Kramer? What is it? Kramer? What is it? Kramer? Do you even know how to pronounce it? Does it even matter? So Florian Kramer, Florian, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name, because I know you're a very distinguished scientist, but here I disagree with this tweet. You say, I'm sorry, but that take is just nuts. Again, the idea that members of the public are uninformed and...
Well, actually, there's an additional thing here, right? So like what these scientists are afraid of, these are scientists that work in BSL-3 and BSL-4 labs. And really, like, if you think about what they're actually saying, is that they're saying that their work might be defunded. That's really what they're complaining about. It's not that the take is nuts, actually. Actually, the fundamental sort of underlying psychological thing, that reason to produce these tweets, is an economic one, that their livelihood is going to get taken away by these community concerns. That's what's underlying this.
I know. It's actually kind of depressing, right? Yeah. So we're about to get into the ones that speak to like did I lose here we go. All right. Now this is one from this guy, Mark Pfeiffer. He writes, again, about biosafety now. So this is, again, Mark Pfeiffer, Jay, whose name I will not redact out of this, video. And I certainly welcome Mark Pfeiffer to appear on a future episode of Can I Respond to That, Please? So he can respond to me responding to his tweet if he would like. He says, apparently these folks want to either end research on human infectious disease or to make it massively less safe. Don't believe their lies. Jay, is it okay? And I'll bleep this out because I would like to respond to Mark Pfeiffer with a big, serious, like, you are such a intellectually uncurious.
My ears are okay. So Bryce, a couple of things about this tweet that are really interesting to me. So first of all, apparently these folks. So which folks is he talking about? I think
Lorraine, Roxbury Safety Net. Lorraine,
right.
Literally says he literally says science, like, these give us life. We need these for life. Science. We need science.
So these folks he's talking about community members, right? Maybe just to be charitable. I mean, he's talking about biosafety now, which is like platforming community members. These folks either want to end research on human infectious disease. Well, if you take what was said in that meeting by Lorraine seriously, she wasn't saying that.
No, of course not. But Mark Pfeiffer either his ears don't work or he just doesn't give what other people say if he has his own agenda.
And then he's saying, or make it massively less safe. What he's saying there is that if you don't have BSL 3 or 4 labs, the same research will happen except in BSL 1 and 2 labs.
BSL 1 and 2, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting take by Mark.
By the way, Bryce, the research that likely caused the pandemic very likely took place in effectively a BSL 2 lab, right?
Don't believe the lies. Don't believe the lies, Jay. Those are all lies. Mark Pfeiffer, I'm sure, has really thought this carefully through. Mark, I hope you're listening to this or somebody sends this to you because you should be ashamed of this, Frank. I mean, I'm ashamed of a lot of things I do. This one, I don't think I've ever done something like this. If I did, I'd like to apologize for it.
Well, I'm not sure why you're like, this particular guy makes you quite so unhappy, but I'll tell you, this indicates an attitude towards safety that makes me really question, sort of the ethics of people in this field. Like, make it massively less safe. He's saying that the people will work in if you don't let them have a BSL 2 or 3 lab, they will work in BSL 3 or 4 lab. They'll work in less safe environments. They're saying that you'll take more risks. There's an email from Jeremy Farrar, the former head of the Wellcome Trust, in the early days of the pandemic, where they're talking about the Wuhan lab environment. And if I recall, he calls it a Wild West.
Yeah. He refers to it as Wild West. Yeah, exactly.
Meaning that they're like working with very dangerous select agents like the COVID virus potentially in BSL 2 environments. Like really, really, really environments that have absolutely no chance of like securing them. And this guy is saying that unless you build us BSL 4 labs or 3 labs in the middle of city centers, we're going to do this work in low security environments.
And they wonder why the public doesn't trust scientists. I really wonder, Mark. I have to seriously, I'm seriously concerned. Here, now this actually is, these next ones are the ones that I think bothered me perhaps the most, which is kind of interesting given I just went a little bit crazy on Mark here. This is this guy named Prasad, whatever it is, Jalapali, whatever. He's an MD, PhD, who I used to interact with until I realized that he was this, whatever this is. So I'm going to read it. So this is Prasad. He writes, when any activist group slanders scientists and physicians, animal rights, pro-life, whoever, it is right and proper to call that slander out. Calmly, truthfully, and professionally. It's not to convince activists of their error or curry their favor. That's impossible. Now that's just the first of, I think, 2, or maybe it's 3. Okay, yeah, and then this is, oh yes, and so this, I think this is in a thread of that he's also responding to Mark. He goes on to write, the original tweet Mark is quoting is an amplified lie. So again, repeating this idea that Lorraine's words are a lie. This is a false and slanderous description of work in BSL 3 facilities. Again, so What Lorraine said was BSL-3 facilities have
dual use.
Dual use. So Prasad doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm sorry, Jay, I can't not use bad language when I see this level of arrogance and stupidity. Without such work, we can't have therapeutic agents, therapeutics against HIV/AIDS and other BSL-3 class pathogens. And then he says this: a hit dog hollers.
Well, so like, can I just say one quick thing about these tweets before we move on? The philosophy here is that if scientists are criticized in a way that they think is inaccurate or unfair, by a community member, the appropriate response is to attack the community member, calmly and professionally attack them, maybe a devastating takedown, rather than persuade the community member with facts, treat them like a human being might treat them, where the idea is to to reason with them together, and maybe we'll learn something from that reasoning together, right? Maybe there's some concerns that we don't understand or know about as scientists, but no. What we should do is we should attack them. We should treat them as the enemy, as the other, and we're the aggrieved party because the scientists placing this lab in this city center where you have a leak that might harm the community members. The community members are speaking up and saying, I don't want to take that risk. Why are you having us take that risk? Please explain to us what's going on here. The scientists are the ones the aggrieved party here, right? So it's the philosophy of this is a full inversion of who's taking the risks and who's benefiting from those risks being taken.
This is so depressing. So he writes, so Prasad first wrote in response to I think he was actually responding to that Joe guy's tweet. He wrote, this is puzzling. BSL-3 containment covers a large basket of pathogens. Some, like M. tuberculosis, are clearly pressing medical and global health threats. Do we quit on drug and vaccine development against TB? So again, the whole point here is that they're just misrepresenting what was said by Lorraine, because
she didn't argue that you shouldn't do work in BSL-3 labs. She's saying don't put them in city centers near populations.
I don't think they care about
actually the other thing, it's not even Biosafety Now's position that all BSL-3 labs should be closed. He's misrepresenting Biosafety Now's position.
Yes. Well, again, he's a scientist, so he will lie. Sorry. Jay, this is going to live rent-free in my mind for a long time. So here,
well, I'm hoping we can get you through that just by talking through them, Bryce.
So let's see. So this is, right. So here we go. So Jay, this is again, now back in, what was this, March? So I responded to Prasad with the following. I said, he's accusing her of lying. And I guess I said, okay.
Let me read it in your voice, Bryce.
Okay,
I can't do your voice.
Well, I put bad words in there. You want to read it, Jay? Okay, if you can read it. I don't know.
Does this mean that the other statements she made are not lies? If so, this would imply you and Mark don't care that Boston University lies to residents of Roxbury. You clearly don't have 1 ounce of empathy for them. That's absolutely the case. That's Bryce, you wrote that.
I did. And now, so I don't think, so one of the things here, Jay, I don't think I would, so this is a time, I would not use this approach right now. I think this clearly was not an effective approach. So I just am in this sort of,
you were upset with the hit dog hollers and the, I think the substance of this is correct in a sense. Now, I also wouldn't use this approach. You're questioning their motive, right? Because I don't know for certain what their motive is.
I learned this not to do this because, well, you want to read what Prasad, can you read what how Prasad responds to me? which is kind of very interesting.
Prasad responds, I can't understand it for you, Bryce. The words are very simple. The statement is precise. Again, I really hope you have something meaningful in your life to fall back on. You seem to be in a lot of pain. You have a great philosophy department at Rutgers. They can help you use basic terms of logic, like imply, as something other than excluded.
So this guy Prasad's very, very into him. Like he's very pleased with himself, I got to say.
Yeah, no, this is a very condescending response, right? So you are questioning his motive. You're asking him, do you really have empathy for the communities that are involved in the protesting the placement of these labs, right? That's essentially the heart and soul of your tweet. And what he's saying is that you just didn't understand him well enough. If you just understood him well enough, you would agree with him, really. And that there's something wrong with you mentally because that you can go seek help with the philosophy department to help you with basic logic and basic reading skills so that you can understand his brilliance better. Am I right? I mean, I think I characterize it properly, right?
Yeah, maybe we need to do a whole episode just on this guy. And then of course I would be remiss not to share this from this person who I forget. I don't even know where they are now.
I'm not going to read this one. I'm sorry.
This is insane and displays both the ignorance and the clear intentions of this bunch of shysters. Oh, sorry. This is from a virologist in King's College in England named Stuart Neal. He writes, and I quote, "This is insane and displays both the ignorance and the clear intentions of this bunch of shysters. It always was an anti-science witch hunt led by abusive conspiracy theorists shrouding themselves in their alleged academic credentials. Nothing to do with lab safety." And he is Stuart Neal. I really don't understand why people have any, why people, I don't understand.
Well, this is the first person that you've put on the screen today that I have seen before on Twitter and elsewhere. And my sense of him is that he is, first, he's a very, very angry man, that he responds to almost anything that he views as a threat with like bluster and anger. Second, the second, he ignores all of the facts, right? This is this is a discussion about where biosafety, like BSL 3 or 4 labs should be placed. And then third, like we talked about before, I think a lot of what his anger comes from is the idea that his business is going to be undermined. His business, which I assume is some sort of virology, right, is going to be undermined if the public comes to understand the risk that virologists are taking on behalf of the broader community, where the community if the community gets to have a say in those risks getting taken.
You handle these very rationally. I just sort of am like, what a piece. Let's go back for a moment, Jay. I forgot there was more. Again, I stopped interacting with this person. This person I don't understand. So again, this is this Prasad guy, and so after he wrote this very condescending point, so he writes to me, Jay. This interaction I think is worth again noting the incredible level of condescension that perhaps explains why I haven't allowed this to leave my head. So Prasad, this is the threat here. When any activist group slanders scientists and physicians, animal rights, pro-life, whoever, it is right and proper to call that slander out, calmly, truthfully, and professionally. It's not to convince activists of their error or curry their favor. That's impossible. I responded to that with, did you call out Boston University for lying to the public about the gain-of-function Omicron experiments? And now this refers to something that happened, recently, at the time, where the Boston University had performed experiments, gain-of-function experiments, without any approval, and it caused a bit of a kerfuffle and
No,
then they lied.
just Bryce, it's worth like telling people what those experiments were. They took Omicron, which is very, very transmissible,
and then combined it with wild type, the wild type strain, which
kills a lot more people.
Pathogenic, and then to see what would Jay, they learned a lot from that. To see what would happen, Jay, to see what would happen, because that's what we do as scientists. We saw what happened, and what happened was they got a Nature paper. That's what happened. It caused an outrage, and it still got published in Nature. And I still don't quite understand what was gained from that wonderful experiment. But regardless of the wonderful knowledge and science and all the therapeutics and vaccines that came from it, the key thing was,
which were none, as far as I understand.
Well, that's because you're a conspiracy monger and stuff. We get it.
I literally think there were none.
Oh no! It's because you're part of the alt-right QAnon faction of something. But to be fair, they lied. BU lied about the fact that they basically like put on the preprint paper that they had funding from the NIH, which meant that when they weren't supposed to do the experiments, if they did, so they just removed the fact. They're like, whoops, oh no, NIH didn't fund this. We used the pocket change lying around on our couches at home to fund these experiments. And
who wouldn't use pocket change to like make frankenviruses so that where you combine the transmissibility of Omicron and the deadliness of Wuhan Alpha
to see what happens. Now, Jay, I saw a little smile on your face when you read further how Prasad responded to me. And what he said was, I guess he didn't see my post for a while. And he said, "Good morning, Bryce. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate your goalpost moving question. It's how I know you've been checkmated on the actual topic of discussion. Better luck next time." Then he continues, "Like I said before, have a wonderful Sunday. It's going to be cold but sunny in our part of the country. I hope you have something personally satisfying in store." I really like that he was trying to,
he's like, let's be charitable to the guy. Like what he's doing is dropping the mic, and he's very pleased with himself that he's dropped the mic. I mean, and so good on him. He had enjoyed that moment where he dropped the mic because, you asked him if he had anything to say about this crazy Omicron experiment. It's goalpost moving. Okay, let's just see. It's goalpost moving because the original discussion was should scientists call out community activists when they lie? And you're now asking whether when scientists lie, should scientists call out scientists? And that's the goalpost.
Community members call out. Yeah, should community members be able to call out scientists for lying? And that, I honestly, Jay,
no, Bryce, you're asking if the scientists should call out scientists when they lie. That's the upshot of your tweet. And he's saying that's goalpost moving because it's not a scientist calling out a community member for supposedly lying about a scientist. You're saying that scientists should be consistent and call out other scientists when they lie. And he's like saying, no, that's a goalpost move. You've changed the goal of the debate or discussion or whatever thing you're having with him away from the fact, which is what matters is when community members criticize scientists should criticize the community members back in recompense or in the same way.
Plus, he's expressing concern that I'm mentally unwell. Which
he wants you to have a nice day. I mean,
before he said I had a lot of pain in my life.
Yeah, but he's trying to address that by offering you weather advice or something like,
Well, it's sunny. Yeah, he said get some. Right. I mean, he's an MD, PhD, so he's definitely a healer. I see him as somebody I definitely look. The point is, I feel like that was for many, like when Biosafety Now started, that was a lot of the responses of scientists to this, where they would like question the motives and pretend that I wasn't serious about this and all kinds of stuff. And it made me very angry, in part because I had been giving. It goes back to what I said before. Like I kind of believed what I now consider completely bullshit hypocrisy, that there was some, like, that scientists actually cared about some of the stuff, like the social justice stuff. They just don't care. I really don't see any. So I see nothing at all. I see them only caring about their money and their grants, and it's actually the
Bryce,
thing that bothers me the
so
most.
let me just defend a little bit. So I don't think that it's universal. I don't think it's all hypocrisy. I think that there are some scientists that do care. And then second, I'd say this, that a lot of it is hypocrisy, and it's quite frustrating. I share your frustration about this. But even among the people who do care, it's really hard when the set of incentives in science, are to like, if you want to advance, you have to virtue signal. If you want to advance, you have to care more about your career than you care about the people that you're studying. It's frustrating because scientists, for the most part, most scientists work for the public. Certainly, like the vast majority of academic scientists work for the public. We are funded by the public.
Right. Well, they're paid. They do not work for the public, Jay. They absolutely.
Well, they're paid by the public. I mean,
paid by the public, but they
ideally work for the public, right? In a sense, we're answerable to the public, and we always have been. It's not like even if you work for a pharmaceutical company, ultimately you work for the public, for the products you produce are bought by the public. The transaction, the idea that scientists stand above society, should be supported by society, regardless, and be able to take risks on behalf of society because we're somehow wiser, better than the rest of society, and in a way never interact with the concerns of society around us, is such a abhorrent idea to me. And I know, because I live and work among scientists for a living, even ones who, even some who like move fluids around, Bryce, even you'd call them scientists. I mean, it's ridiculous, Bryce. It's ridiculous. Like the kind of hubris that and I think for the most part, scientists have gotten away with this forever because the product of a lot of science have undoubtedly improved the lives of many, many people, billions of people. But, just to be clear, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to have the hubris to take decisions on the part of large communities of people, whether communities of color or anybody else, actually, without the feedback of those people that you're taking risks on behalf of. It's just very simple, kind of basic ethics. Informed consent. Consent is what you started with this discussion with, and that's what we're talking about here. All of this noise around, insulting you and insulting biosafety now, talking about lies about BSL-3. It's to hide the idea that there's some scientists who think that they don't need the consent of the community to take risks on behalf of the community or expose the community to those risks.
There's no thought that Lorraine is worth talking to at all. Like Prasad lays it out very clearly. Lorraine is garbage. Like she doesn't warrant a response other than just telling her she's wrong and lies.
Devastating takedown, right?
Devastating takedown.
The idea, I mean, I think that this is the fundamental problem. Like if we are scientists that want to do good for the community and for people, then we need to actually take the concerns of the people and the communities that that support us, which is basically, the American taxpayer, if you're an American university scientist, very, very seriously. And if you, the idea that science has an infinite supply of public trust and they can spend it wantonly, maybe that was true before the pandemic, but at this point, that's not true, Bryce.
It's far from true. I mean, it's the furthest from the truth, and I think a lot of scientists are in denial.
Well, but the point is that public trust is vitally important for the work of scientists. We have to earn it. And, it's with the products of science have built a large amount of like goodwill towards scientists by the public, right? That's undeniable. But the pandemic has fundamentally altered that, especially since it's possible, very likely even, that scientific hubris caused the pandemic, killing millions and millions of people, costing trillions of dollars, and untold suffering, both by the pandemic itself and also the response to the pandemic. And so we sit as scientists in a very precarious edge. we're so used to being able to say sit above the community on top of this massive amount of goodwill that the success of science has built up, thinking that it's permanent, Bryce, but it's not permanent. And activities of criticizing scientists so that the scientists are more answerable to the community, those are pro-social kinds of activities. Those are built to, because it's not just that we have to like assure the communities that we're going to be good by lying to them. We have to say, we're taking you seriously. We're going to change what we do in response to your concerns. That's how you build trust, and not hit a dog. What is it? A hit dog? I mean, hit dog
hollers. A hit dog.
Yeah, it's not that you should go now holler back at people that have legitimate concerns as if they're beneath our notice.
I don't understand it. I don't understand what motivates somebody to do that.
Ultimately, it's hubris, right? And the idea that we deserve to be able to do whatever we want to do, and we deserve to be able to live in fancy cities while we do it, and we the respect to have the respect of the communities around us. We deserve to win prizes. We deserve to be in Plato's hierarchy, the philosopher kings that can make decisions for the good of all the community, even without the community weighing in.
And the tweets that I showed were actually just a small fraction of the total number of tweets that were attacking those words that Lorraine said. But like I said earlier, the sort of, the landscape of Twitter, which is now X, has changed to the point where nobody would, I don't think anyone would actually have a same response if I posted those words today on the Biosafety Now site.
Well, I mean, those tweets were from 2023. This is before I was part of Biosafety Now. I think I saw some of this, although I don't think I remember this particular set of tweet exchanges from that back then. What's changed, Bryce, is I think it's starting to dawn on the scientific community that something's gone very, very wrong. They don't yet understand why, and they've left the Twitter community not prime, although they'll say it's because Elon Musk has taken over and promoted all kinds of things they don't like to see. It's because they can't stand the fact that there are a large number of people in the community at large that don't trust them. Every time they post, they now they see the community's response to this kind of hubris, the public's response to this kind of hubris, and they can't stand it.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a good thing. It's going to get worse I guess it will eventually get to the point, because there will be fundamental reform at all levels.
I think it will be a tough time for scientists who have this hubris, but for scientists who want to who deeply understand how they rely on the public for the support for the work that they do, whose work is aimed at trying to benefit the public, which I actually, honestly, Bryce, I just say I think is most scientists. They're just sort of the silent majority, and they're bullied by a class. I do. I think.
Jay? Okay. Well, I'm waiting for them to come. I'm waiting for the silent majority to rear its head, because I don't know.
Bryce, you had the scientific leadership essentially say, the heads of the NIH, the head of the NID essentially say, it's open season on the community. It's open season on scientists who speak up, and a lot of scientists, I think most of them are good, but that want good, say, look at this. They say, oh, look, I'm not going to stick my head up because it's going to get chopped off. If you have change in leadership, and you have a repudiation of these kinds of like antisocial values, I do think that you would transform science into the force for good it should be.
I agree with that. I just don't believe there's a lot of silent. I actually think that once those scientists are vocal, which they will be, because what will happen is their grant funding becomes threatened with reform. The words that come out of their mouths will not be, "Oh man, I'm so sorry that I was silent. I was part of the silent majority, and now I'm ready to, thankfully you're in charge now, and we can all. This is great. I can't wait to make science better." No, I think it is going to be more like what we saw with those tweets, like hit dog hollers. You are all pieces of garbage. That you're anti-science, and we need to attack it. I could be wrong.
No, I'm not saying there won't be anger. I mean, I agree with you. There will be anger, but what I mean is not that there is. I think most fundamentally the people respond, and scientists are no exception, to the incentives placed in front of them. And
yeah, but they're so used to thinking that the money will always flow because everyone values their amazing research. They're going to be amazed when that spigot gets turned off. The gall of people to turn that spigot off, I don't think they're going to have any humility. I really don't. I really just am expecting the worst.
Yeah, I think, okay, let me do maybe we disagree on this, but let me do a prediction of the future. I do think that you're right about the anger. But I think that if you have a change in the incentive structures, the kind of science that gets done will be very, very different. It'll be pro-social science, not science that puts the community at risk. And that science then will, and most scientists will move over happily to that, because I don't think most scientists want to do anti-social science.
I agree, but here's maybe I'll just use this. We just saw a 50-second video clip, right? And we saw a bunch of scientists incapable of properly understanding what was said, right? Now you imagine we're going to roll out some policy, which is going to be this massive fundamental reform, but once they understand it, they'll then be like, oh, wow, like this is better for us.
No, Bryce,
they can barely understand 50 seconds of the video.
They don't have to understand it. They just have to respond to the incentives.
They'll be told that.
Oh, no, but Bryce, this is one thing scientists are quite good at. You give them a system, and they'll figure out how to work the system.
All right. Well, okay, but all right. How about this? We will put a pin in it. My point is that there will be the people who are going to be removed from science are going to fight this. Those people will be messaging the ones under them that this is bad for you. The ones under them, because they have no intellectual curiosity and they trust the bad actors, will respond in kind and attack it. And instead of understanding this is better for you, and there's an example of this because I believe that there was an opposition to the NIH reform, right? There was a proposed NIH reform which would benefit 95% of all researchers. And the societies, I think, have not come on board with it. There's already evidence that scientists will not do the right thing, even if they're given a better option, because they will reject, because it's the source of the option that they won't like, as you know.
Yeah, I think that the opposition to these kinds of reforms the idea is to it's like a 1-0 thing. Like if they can just prevent them from happening, then you can keep the status quo. It's fundamentally conservative in the sense of let's just keep the system in place. When the system changes, and Bryce, I know you and I agree on this. Like there's a tidal wave of public opinion that the scientists don't see, are in denial about. They sense it because that's why they leave for blue sky rather than facing that tidal wave. But when that tidal wave sweeps over, the question is what will be left. And what I'm saying is that I think if organizations like Biosafety Now, the purpose isn't to do away with science. The purpose is to rechannel science toward pro-social activities. And when the system is fundamentally reformed so that it is oriented toward that, most of those scientists who are yelling, don't change it, don't change it, don't change it, will adapt to that new system, and they will do pro-social things because the incentives push them in that direction.
And they will say they were always doing it the right way. They will
That's
always
true,
say
actually.
that they always believed in this and that they didn't know what we're talking about, that we thought that they weren't.
Okay, we can end on an agreement, Bryce. That's exactly right.
So true. All right. Well, Jay, I don't know what's going to come of what we're going to end this This is episode one half of this episode is, I don't know what's going to come of it, but I do think this was a very useful discussion of something that's been bothering me for a long time, and will probably continue to bother me because I still got a lot of anger here. But so Jay, what I'd like to do now, what I would like to do is I'd like to end the show. And I've been working hard, Jay, as you know, I have trouble with the sign-offs, but today I think I've got this down. I've got it down, like, cause you're really good at doing the sign-offs. So I'm going to try. I try to do the sign-offs. So it's been great. It's been great to talk to you today, Jay, on this third episode of Science from the Fringe. Hold on. Let me try it again. Let's try it again. This has been Bryce Nichols and Jay Bhattacharya bringing you Science from the Fringe. Can I respond to that, please? We'll see you. What? No, hold on. Okay. Jay, maybe you should try, because this
has been Professor Jay Bhattacharya speaking with Bryce Nichols on Science from the Fringe, our podcast series. May I respond to that, please? Part 3. Until next time, thank you for listening.
God, that was so easy, Jay.